In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an awesome data analyst portfolio project that will look great when you're applying to any sort of data analytics job. We'll be using Tableau to analyze a really interesting data set about gun background checks in the United States. This project will look best when you're applying to data analyst jobs or business intelligence jobs or data visualization jobs, where in the requirements they say something about data viz, dashboarding, Tableau, Power BI, Spotfire, Looker, those types of things. I think we can all admit the US has some sort of a gun problem. I don't really want to make this video political at all. Instead, I just want to show you this interesting data set that I found and create some awesome data visualizations with it. You might not know this, but before you purchase a gun in the United States, the cashier actually calls an agency to do a background check on the customer to see if they're eligible to buy a gun or not. In the last 20 years, over 100 million checks have been done, and there's actually been 700,000 purchases that were prevented because of these checks. So in this video, I'm going to show you 3 different graphs that I created that kind of highlight the story of background checks for gun sales. But first, I want to tell you where I got this data. This data set is actually a pretty cool one, and I found it inside of my course, Data Science Project Studio. Inside of there's something there called the Million Dataset Catalog, where I basically scoured the internet high and low and found the coolest and the best data sets and organized them all ready for your access. The course not only includes this awesome catalog of data sets, but a bunch of tutorials that'll help you make awesome data science projects that'll help you get hired. There's a link in the description down below if you want to learn more. Okay, but this particular data set is actually published every month by the FBI in a PDF format. And BuzzFeed, actually, out of all the people, created a parser for these PDFs and now holds the database, where it's basically just a CSV from the last 20 years. So we'll go ahead and download that data set that's hosted on GitHub and populate it inside of Tableau. The data set basically looks like this. You have a month and a year on the left-hand column, the state, the number of permits, the permit rechecks, and then a bunch of different categories like handgun, long gun, multiple, all this pre-pawn, redemption, returned, stuff like that. I basically am just paying attention to the totals at the end, which is going to be a comprehensive number of background checks per state per month. Now, there's lots of different ways you could take this data set and analyze it and slice it and dice it and present it in a meaningful way. For me, I was interested in seeing how these background checks changed over time. So I'm really focused on the time series of it all. Also location, like for instance, what state is checking the most and what state is checking the least. And so that's primarily where my mind will be and why I made these graphs. So the first graph I made is just basically a bar chart, a horizontal bar chart with the states going down the y-axis, and then the totals of the actual gun checks over all of the years on the x-axis. And you can see that Kentucky leads with 50 million checks over the 20 years. Note I did make this descending by the total number of the sums. I added the sum as a label to all of this, and I also did a coloring, so the darker blue, the more gun checks there actually were. So this is the first graph that I made. Kentucky is first, and we'll actually see why here in a second. If we check back in BuzzFeed's GitHub repo, we'll say that the PDF contains important notes and caveats. It's a good idea to read these before diving in. Specifically, you can see right here, Kentucky runs a new check on each concealed carry license holder each month. So that means, you know, every time that someone has a concealed carry license, Kentucky's running a new check on them every single month since 2014. So that's why you see Kentucky in first, probably because they're doing monthly checks on their concealed weapons holders. Next, I made this stacked area chart, and basically we're going to have the month as the x-axis and the sum totals as the y-axis. And we're adding the state as the colors and the labels. And what this basically does is it's just a line chart for each one of these things over time. And so that gives us an overall view. You know, you can see as time has gone on, the totals for the country as a whole have gone up, but you can see individually that these lines get thicker, these areas get thicker, and that represents that particular state getting bigger as well. So for example, we see Kentucky is now a big part, Illinois is a big part. And this is just kind of interesting because it lets you compare state to state over time. Now with 50 different colors, it gets a little bit too hard to actually compare. That's why this graph isn't necessarily the best graph to display this, but I still thought it was pretty interesting. I like area charts, and I thought this kind of looked like different like sand layers you make when you're a kid, or, you know, different layers of the earth or something like that. So I left it in. I thought it was interesting. It basically lets you see proportions and totals and how they change over time of the last 20 to 30 years. And lastly, I created this map that basically has the darker red, the more checks that actually occurred. And I put the month in the pages section, which allows you to kind of get like this animated view of how things change. You know, you can go one at a time and see these numbers change. So I have the sum of the totals as a color. I have the state name, and I will as well have the sum of the totals as a label. And you can kind of see as we click to the right how these numbers change over time, or you can grab this dot and kind of move it a little bit more quickly. There is some like big ups and downs. So for instance, Kentucky, you see kind of growing right there. Utah had a bunch those particular months. It is interesting. There does seem to be like some seasonality in between it. I don't know if that's like a January, like New Year thing or something like that. That would be something for you guys to dive into and check the months. It's something I didn't really do, but I thought this was pretty interesting, you know, especially like Illinois recently. Like, look at that. That is a lot in the last little bit in Illinois, almost 1 million happening in Illinois. So we want to dive into that and try to understand why that's happening as well. So hopefully you have some good starting points to take this project and put it somewhere new, make it your own, and, you know, add to it, add better analysis. Because once again, I'm doing 30-day science projects in 30 days, so I can't spend a ton of time on each project, but hopefully this gave you a good idea and inspiration to do your own. So that concludes this project. Once again, this was part of 30-day science projects in 30 days. You can get the entire Tableau data as well as the workbooks in the link in the description down below, the resources link to make this on your own and take it to the next level. I appreciate all you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this project, you'll also enjoy these projects. Please watch them, guys. I think they're good. See you tomorrow. Bye.